Hey, everybody, I have an incredible guest today. He is the one and the only Omar Hamada. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Jeff?
I'm doing great. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your credentials, so to speak.
Sure. Jeff, I just enjoy life. So a lot of people get sometimes flustered or intimidated when um, we talk about these things. But, just like everybody else, I'm just an ordinary guy who just enjoys learning and leans forward into life and just takes it as it comes. So, I'm American born of Lebanese parents. They were both immigrants from Lebanon. I was born in Tallahassee, and while my dad was in graduate school at Florida State. And then we moved around a lot from Florida back to Beirut to New York to California, Tennessee. As I've gone through life, I've had many varied interests, and in trying to relay them to other people, I found it easier to really just alliterate things. So what I say is I have 5 M's. I was married for 23 years. I have 4 children, and they range in age from 14, actually almost 15 now, to 24. Great, fantastic kids, all doing. I'm very proud of them. They're really doing very well. Um, and then the second is an MBA. I got an MBA from Vanderbilt. I'd been recruited to Nashville actually, it was right after 9/11, during the time I was deployed overseas. And I was recruited by HCA and came in as the chief of OBGYN and pediatrics at a new hospital they'd set up here in the Nashville area. And it was the first physician on staff there at that new hospital. And things, I just decided um, to move on and further my education in the business world. So when I did that, I went to Vanderbilt. The next M is medicine. So I've always known I was wanting to be a physician. I thought I'd end up actually, I started off wanting to be a cardiothoracic surgeon after reading a book, One Life, by Dr. Bernard out of South Africa, who did the first human heart transplant in the late 60s. My dad gave me that book at 15, read it, and thought, that's what I want to do. Got to med school. Things changed. I ended up thinking I was going to do neurosurgery and was actually a neurosurgical extern in Memphis with Sims Murphy Clinic for several years as I was going through med school.
So you went from the heart to the brain?
Yeah, that's it at the time. And I was class president. I was doing research at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, also doing bench research at the University of Tennessee in the neurosciences and neuroanatomy. Ended up switching to family medicine, missed the OR, so backed into OBGYN when they called and said, hey, we've got an empty slot. You want to fill it? And I said, sure, because I missed the OR. So, and it all makes sense when you hear the details of the story. We're covering, 50,000-foot view, so it might seem a little jumbled right now, but if you know the details, it actually does make sense. So came out of medicine and was board certified in family med and also OBGYN, and got some more training and also another board eligibility in this next M, which was the military. Started off in a MASH unit in the Tennessee Guard, switched pretty quickly into the Special Forces, the Green Berets, became a flight surgeon and a diving medical officer after Navy dive school. So also became a certified Navy diver, both hard hat and scuba. And then was qualified then for sports medicine as well. So that was sort of another little, notch in the belt. Not that I was looking for it, but it just sort of happened. About 14 years in the military, ended up getting deployed to Afghanistan after 9/11. A lot of details there. A lot of guys tried to get out. I was sort of I wanted to make sure I was there, and I'm glad I went. That was in 2002, right? Pretty much right after we kicked off. And then the other M is ministry. The core of the foundational aspect of my life is Christ, and I feel like the reason we're here is to make disciples. And I've always also wanted to preach, so I ended up going to seminary, getting ordained, getting a seminary degree, and using that throughout my life as well to mentor, to disciple, to teach Bible studies and preach and whatever else. And then the last M was music. As a young man, I was very involved. My dad was a musician. I trained in opera and also classical vocal performance and classical trumpet and jazz trumpet. But that's sort of me in a nutshell. There's a lot of other things in there.
I mean, in all of these, it wasn't just a light little position. It was kind of heavy. Each thing, you were hands on deep into whatever it was. That's
Yeah,
pretty awesome.
everything I've done, I've wanted to do to the best of my ability and get to the top of, whatever I was doing. So,
Let's look at how did the military, how did that all start, and you got into medicine in that and special
yeah.
ops.
Yeah, so the way I got in the military, growing up, my family in Lebanon back home, they're involved in so many things in the military and politics, in medicine and law, and religion. I mean, my great grandfather and great uncle were the heads of the Druze religion, analogous to the Pope of the Catholic Church at various times. They were the leaders of the Druze worldwide, DRUZE. Um, and then I have, I've had cousins who've been in Parliament. A couple have been assassinated because of their pro-Western stances. And I've got other cousins who were, one who was the commander of the Lebanese Air Force for a while back in the 70s, things like that. So it was always an interest and something that I felt, maybe I'll do. I think it was just in the blood. My dad, though, was more of a pacifist. His father was assassinated, my grandfather. And dad just didn't want to have anything to do with politics, with weapons, with the military. He just wanted to preach the word, and teach the gospel. So, and music too.
So
It was a very rich childhood where we'd spend every summer overseas on the mission field. While missionaries in Europe, for example, would come back home on sabbatical, we'd go and house sit and do ministry there in Vienna or Milan or, wherever, Brussels, London. So in high school, I started out, like I said, I was 15 when I graduated. So I was kind of small and the dweeb kind of, right? So I got picked on a lot. And I got in fights a lot. I mean, from elementary school on, I was always getting in fights. But it sort of opened my eyes to, the other side, so to speak. Dad was more, pacifist, and I was more, justice. And I gotta, protect those who can't protect themselves, and, liberate the oppressed, which is one of the monikers of special forces. So when I went to seminary, I started med school at 19. I didn't know how to study. I'd never studied in my life. I could just sort of sit down and look at a page in organic chemistry and just memorize it. It was like taking a picture and then just regurgitate that on the test. But when I got to med school, that just didn't work. There was so much information, and it wasn't just regurgitating memorized facts. It was understanding them and how they all interplayed with everything. So it was difficult. So I failed my first set of exams, and I said, I'm just done. I'll come back. I want to drop out. I want to try again. And the dean said, no, you got to keep going. And I was stubborn. I said, fine, I'll keep going, but I'm not going to study. So I blanked out my first year, and got the requisite letter of dismissal. But they said, we understand there are extenuating circumstances, and show us that you mean business and you want to be here. And if you do, we'll let you back in. If you don't, best wishes. So I went to seminary, and one of my friends there that I met was in the military, or had been in the military. So when I came back to med school in Memphis, I was class president and picked up all those other things I told you I did, graduate school and research at St. Jude and everything else, and singing waiter and, all this stuff. And after our first set of exams, I was living in the Phi Chi medical fraternity house, and we were watching Platoon, and I thought, you know what, that'd be pretty cool. So next thing you know, there I am in the military. I'd always had that interest, primarily for three reasons. One, I believed every able-bodied male over the age of 18 needed to serve the country in some capacity. Two, I believed that the Army was the greatest place to learn leadership, and I felt like that's where I want to go to learn how to lead people effectively. And third, I had that strange yearning for adventure, and thought, I want to join the Army and see the world. As my Navy friends say, join the Navy and see the world, but they never told me 2/3 of it was water. But the Army is different, right? So I did that, and I started off in a MASH unit. And it was great for the first couple of years, learning how to wear a uniform and salute and learn military bearing and, all the routine stuff. But then I got bored, and I felt like I didn't really enjoy being around the other doctors so much. I mean, bad jokes, bad coffee, and It just wasn't that fun, just sitting around filling out paperwork. So one time we had the combat casualty care course, and it has different phases. And the second phase, I think it was being run by Green Berets, and it was land navigation and rappelling and shooting and all sorts of things. And I really liked it. I really enjoyed it, and enjoyed hanging out with the Green Berets, more so than I did my other physician friends. And at the end of that phase, I got approached by a couple of Green Berets, and they said, "Hey, Doc, how'd you like to go SF?" And I said, "I'd love to. What do I need to do?" And handed me a card and said, "Just call this number on Monday, and we'll see you in a couple of months." So that was the next 10 years of my military service was with them.
Well, what time frame was this? What year ish?
This was probably 94, if I remember
Okay.
right.
So you're like, you just kind of got bored and it's like, I'm going to try something different in the military. And
Yeah, I felt like this isn't, I didn't join the army to be in a mass unit. I mean, this
right.
isn't what I joined up for. Um, I mean, it was fun. It was okay, but I just didn't feel like I fit, and that's not what I really wanted out of the army.
Is that what got you in the special forces,
Mhm.
special ops?
Yep.
So what was that like? I mean, they like, hey, you want to join? You did, and then was it kind of a shock to you, or was it like
No, it was
exhilarating?
fantastic. I felt like I was at home with
Wow.
guys who I understood and who understood me, and sort of, hard driving, forward leaning, unconventional. You don't have to tell everybody exactly how to do things. You just say, "Here's the task, get it done." And then any school I wanted, I got. And there were some that we had to do, like airborne and flight surgeon, and but other schools I wanted, and they were like, "Sure, go, go to it." And
So you were in the military. You've retired from the military, from
so
army.
I got out.
Army.
After I got back from Afghanistan, that was in 2003,
Okay.
and I was trying to save my marriage at the time. My ex-wife told me, if you get deployed again, I'm not going to be here when you get back, and you need to choose, essentially. And I decided, I chose her, knowing now, or I wish I'd known then what I know now. And if I knew that my marriage wasn't going to last, I would have just stayed in, because I think that was the greatest decision I ever made, is getting in and being a part of those guys in SF. I mean, I tell people that was a better decision even than medical school.
Wow.
So, and it's hard to explain that or understand it, but
Yeah.
it was one of the best decisions I feel I made. So, consequently, I think one of the worst decisions I've made was getting out.
So after you're out of the military, where was your life going then?
So, the unit I was in was a guard unit, so like the reserves kind of. So I was still full-time medicine at UT Memphis. I was on faculty. I was lecturing and constructing courses and teaching medical students. But after, I got recruited to Nashville during that time frame. So we moved to Nashville, and I joined HCA as a board member of the hospital in Smyrna. Just like I didn't fit in the conventional army with all the structure and the rules and regulations, and I had to find a different way to engage, and that was in the special forces, where you have so much more freedom. I mean, you could grow a beard, you could grow your hair long, you could wear blue jeans and a t-shirt. You don't have to be in uniform, and the conventional army hated us, but we had a different mission. We had a different way of doing things. It was the same way in the business world. I just didn't fit in that tight corporate structure with all the rules and regulations, and you know you can't have any independent thought, really. It's mainly you got to follow the rules and do what you're told, and you're a producer. So that's where I found that freedom and joy with entrepreneurship. Of Now I can really do what I feel I'm here to do, and in that way, and birth my ideas and have dreams and visions, and try to put legs on them and feet on them, and not just have to do what somebody else wants me to do. Which you find yourself in that cycle as a doctor, I think, because we have struggles asking for money or billing people or accepting money. We're servants, and we want to help people. So I've struggled with the integration of that, of business and then medicine, um, because that's what healthcare is. the integration of business and medicine. And I feel like I'm well educated and well positioned to do that better than most people, unless they have MD, MBAs. But I struggle because my heart is more physician-like. But so I've had to learn some hard lessons. But now that's where I find myself right now, is really launching what I think is a revolutionary healthcare um, um, business that I think is going to change the face of how things are delivered. Back in 2016, my wife at the time, and I, she's also a physician. We started a practice together that was like a beta test of what I'm launching now, only I think in a much better format. And it was very successful. It was in Brentwood. We did really well. Um, but through the divorce and then COVID and some other things that happened, everything just sort of collapsed.
If you could have your dream job, what would it be? With if there was no financial or no big boss, if you could just like, dude, this is what I'm really passionate about. I don't care if I make money or not make money. What would that be? Would it still be in medicine?
I'm the kind of guy who, for years, I tried so hard to listen to what my dad told me and my mentors told me and my friends told me, and that is choose one thing and just do it and do it better than anybody else. And I've tried that, but I can't just choose one thing. I've got so many varied interests, and that's,
Mhm.
I think, what enlivens me. So when I look at people like Tony Robbins and like others who have, 140, 150 businesses that they're involved with in various ways, I'll never have many, at least I sure don't plan to. But I feel like I have great passions for the gospel, for evangelism. I have great passion for for people's hearts and souls. I have great passion for music, for both performance and also listening. I have great passion for the military, for policy, for national affairs, whether foreign or domestic. Um, I have great passion for medicine and people's health, and teaching people how to live into triple digits without medications. Um, so how do you combine all those and tie them all together? I think that's where I'm at right now,
Right.
is combining them all and tying them all together. And so the practice that I have is very focused on longevity, chronic disease reversal, and human performance optimization. So it's a natural progression, I think, to bring all those things together. Um, so if I could do anything and money was no object, I'd do exactly what I'm about to do right now, and launch this practice, but also stay integrally involved with cultural transformation, with discipleship.
Now you were
I think
involved in politics a little bit, weren't you? You ran for office? Yeah.
Well, I was, for a short time, chair of the party in Williamson County, and saw just how much of a snake pit it was. And it was during that time that it was a hard season for me. I didn't want to do it. People were coming and pleading for me to do it because of the direction the party was going in, and evidently didn't. They didn't think they had anybody else who would. But I was in the middle of a divorce. I was in the middle of my business collapsing. I was in the middle of my father dying. My father-in-law had just died, and then I was having my own health problems because of all the stress and everything else going on, and ended up in the hospital for 2 months. So in the midst of all that, now I'm also doing Williamson County um, GOP chair, and that was a mess. So county politics is not something I think I'll ever do again. And it's not anything I really ever wanted to do. My vision was more for national level or state level engagement. So we'll see. That may still come at some point.
But so you had a
Um,
lot piled on you, though. Not only that, the death of your father and your marriage, divorce, and it took a toll on you physically,
yeah,
emotionally, mentally, and you ended up in the hospital. Am I
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. You are, and it's something that I felt. I mean, as a follower of Jesus, divorce is never anything I ever envisioned or wanted. But I got to the point, and literally for years, Jeff, and I'm going to be very transparent here.
Hmm.
I'm not trying to paint a picture of, greatness. And I mean, we're all human and we all struggle and we all have the same battles we fight and face. And, sometimes people get a bit judgmental and think, I'd never do that. But that's just because they've never faced it. Um, so for years, I'd say at least 5 years. I mean, every night going to sleep, every night for 5 years, praying the Lord just take me home. I don't want to wake up, just take me home. And then finally woke up thinking, in terms of, woke up not from sleep, but woke up from that thing I was thinking this can't be what God wants a marriage to look like. I mean, complete misery, and what I felt was some other things. I won't get into it. Um, and I got to the point I really felt like I would either be divorced or dead by the time I was 55. I mean, I thought that my body's not going to make all the stress and tension, um, and toxicity. I felt like I just won't make it to even be 55. It was just so intense in my inner being. And finally, I decided I feel like I've tried everything. I've not left anything on the field, for years and years and years, decades, 2 decades. And so finally, I decided I was done and I was going to file. And 2 weeks after I served her, I ended up in the hospital for 2 months. Um, and I felt it. So that was in July. Starting February before that, I felt like a pain in my left lower quadrant. And then I felt like a mass. I think starting in April, I could feel a mass in there that was just hard and not going away. And I was a busy physician. I know I needed to get a CT scan. I didn't want to do it. As a doctor, you sort of know, right? So I ended up getting a CT, and long story short, 2 weeks after I served her, my colon ruptured, ended up with an intrapelvic abscess, a few fistulas, and things like that, and almost died. I was at Centennial in the ICU for a bit, got septic, had several surgeries, but now back to complete health.
So you're in the hospital for how long?
It was 6 weeks.
6 weeks, and this was about what time frame are we looking? What
The
year?
2018, the fall of 2018.
Okay, so January 2019, you decided to make a post on Twitter. What was your Twitter post that went viral, and why did you do it?
Yeah, so the backstory was I'd been out of the hospital. I had an ostomy. That's one of the things. Three things I didn't want is a vertical incision, an ostomy. I was laying in bed and I had TV on, and I saw where Governor Mario Cuomo of New York went on national television, very proud and celebratory, saying, "We're so proud that New York's going to be the first state in the United States that has such an aggressive abortion legislation." And they changed their entire abortion legislation from something that actually somewhat protected later term infants to one that removed all fetal protections after the 24th week of gestation. Didn't require that a physician did an abortion. It could be anybody who was qualified or certified, with no real parameters around that. And then they removed any rationale for abortion, meaning anyone can have abortion at any time for any reason. It doesn't matter. If a woman comes in at 40 weeks and says, I changed my mind, I don't want this baby, just go ahead and kill it. Not delivery, I mean, aborting, so killing the child, even after viability. So I tweeted something, but basically I'm an OBGYN, board certified OBGYN. I've delivered several thousand babies. And there's never a reason to abort a child in the second or third trimester of pregnancy. Delivery, yes. Abortion, no. And there's a delineation between, technically abortion means terminating the pregnancy. So terminating it through delivery, technically, yes. But when we talk about abortion in our cultural vernacular, we think about intentionally going after the baby and killing the child, not ending the pregnancy, but ripping that child out of the womb. So there's never a reason for that in the second or third trimester pregnancy. There's never really a reason for it, even the first, except for ectopic pregnancies and molar pregnancies and things like that. But ending the pregnancy through delivery, yeah, plenty of things. Preeclampsia, HELP syndrome, all sorts of other things, sepsis. Get the baby delivered, but you don't have to rip it apart limb from limb. So I tweeted that and went to sleep.
I've got to ask you, at this point, did you have like hundreds of thousands of followers, or just had a handful? I mean, were you anybody that anybody would have known?
Well, on Facebook. So I was very prolific on Facebook, and I had a lot of followers on Facebook, but I'd occasionally tweet. And so I tweeted that and went to bed, went to sleep. And the next morning I woke up and it had like blown up. I mean, by the end of it, when it was all over, there were about 10 million hits on Twitter and Facebook
So you
between the
cross
two.
posted it basically,
Mhm.
right? On Twitter and Facebook, huh?
Right. So I posted the full post on Facebook,
Okay.
and it was Twitter was still at 140 characters, so I had to sort of shave some off of it and then post that on Twitter. But it was Twitter that went viral.
Okay. But
And
even on
about
Facebook, you didn't have 100,000 or more followers, did you?
no, no,
So is it, it just took off from Twitter.
yeah.
And so what happened? I mean,
So I'd say 48 hours later, on Instagram, I got an Instagram message from a Fox News producer that said, "Hey, I'm with Fox News. I'm a producer. I'd like to talk to you. Please call me." So I did, and he said, "We'd like to have you on Fox and Friends. Can you be on?" This was like on a Friday, and he said, "We'd like to have you on Sunday morning on Fox and Friends. And would you be willing?" I said, "Sure. I'm in Nashville." He said, "Well, we have a studio in Nashville. If you can be there, downtown at 4 a.m., we'll send a car for you." So I was like, "Okay." And I was in bed post-op, just a few days after having this major surgery. And ordinarily I would have said no, but I mean, Fox News, and the hit went great. And we were sitting in church, and I remember my phone was a different Fox News producer was texting me in the middle of church, and she was like, "We'd like to have you on again tomorrow morning, on Monday morning on Fox and Friends." And I texted her back and I said, "I'm going to be in the ER in Memphis, but yeah, I'll be happy to do it before my ER shift." And she said, "Okay, call time's 3 a.m." I was like, "Wow, that's going to be early." And I remember turning to my mom and saying, "This thing's going crazy." And I was watching my Twitter feed and it was just exploding. And I was already getting some death threats and, "You need to lose your license. I can't believe you take care of women. You should be ashamed. I don't know how anybody would go to you." All this stuff. And, it's just blowing up. And then, positive messages on this, on the other side. But I leaned over to my mom and I said, "I guarantee you I'm going to be in New York in studio by Wednesday." And sure enough, I mean, things had gotten so big that after my hit in Memphis on Monday morning, late morning, they called me and they said, we'd like to have you in studio in New York. Can you be here Wednesday morning?" And I'm like, "Sure." So they flew me up, and
so
it
why
just blew
did
up.
you make that post? What prompted you? You're one out of many physicians probably that felt that same way, and maybe others had posted too. Why did you post that?
When I feel passionate about something that I feel needs to be said, when other people are scared to say it because they fear for their career or the reputation of their lives, I mean, do I have those same fears? Sure. But I feel that it's more important to speak out and to
Mhm.
stand up because so many people feel the same, but they want to be heard and they want to speak, but they don't know, they're scared to. And I
Mhm.
feel like I can be a voice for them.
Tell us where you're at right now.
So I'm still doing
Profession.
emergency medicine and I'm still doing some labor and delivery. But my desire is to get out of hospital medicine completely and focus on writing some books. I've got like half a dozen books in my head that I want to write. And I've got some great friends. I mean, from Esther, who's my agent, to Ken Abraham, who is helping talk me through some stuff, to other folks, and other people that are really walking alongside of me. But the primary thing is really launching this new practice that is focused on longevity, on chronic disease reversal, on human performance optimization, those three things. So I'm still doing labor and delivery here and there. But my goal is to really launch this thing, write a book about it, write probably half a dozen other books. Um,
Is any of them autobiography in the
one,
midst of it? One
yeah,
of them
one
is.
is.
You're a busy guy, and I appreciate it. It's an honor for me to have you on,
Mhm.
and tell me about your life. I really appreciate it. It's
Thanks. Well, it's an honor for me to be on, Jeff. I'm very appreciative that you've been so diligent in chasing me down and have not given up.
no,
So thank you.
absolutely. Anything general you want to tell anybody that may be watching this?
Yeah.
Any last words?
We tend to think very lowly of ourselves in the terms of, I can't do that, or somebody else might be able to, but I can't, or somebody else maybe should say that, but I can't, for whatever reason. But in the end, the only thing that really matters is the reason we're here, what's our purpose, the relationships of the people around us who love us. Um, I mean, life is but a vapor. It's over like this. And all it takes is one person to stand up and say something. And the world is screaming. Everybody's angry. It feels like the world's on fire, like it's about to implode. But there's still a lot of good people. There's still a lot of people that want good things for the world and for the country. And if we're silent, if we let them silence us, then they win. And we can't, because ultimately, I mean, who are we representing? And one of I've had great mentors. Leighton Ford was one that I mentioned. Another was Adrian Rogers. He was the pastor at Bellevue Baptist for 3 decades. A hero of mine, I think, is Clarence Thomas. As much junk as he's faced, and yet he's still going. And he's like, I'm here. He's told me, he said, um, I don't know how I got here. God wanted me here. Don't let anybody gain power if that's what they want. People who want power, you don't want them in power. But he said, I'm going to do the best job I can for as long as I can. And I think that speaks volumes. I mean, what's our life about? Is it about a big bank account and a nice car in the garage and a swimming pool out back and a country club membership? Or for some people it is. But for others like me, I think it's about making the most difference that you can for the most people for as long as you can.
Absolutely.
That's why I think, why the special forces was so meaningful to me, why I'm a physician, why I preach, why I want to do what I do. And it's not for the sake of Omar Hamada, it's for the sake of being passionate about the purpose that I feel I'm here to accomplish.
That's awesome. Well, like I said, it's an honor to have you on, and I appreciate it, and letting people know your story.
My pleasure. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.